Firstly, guys, congratulations on such a resounding result today. Were you surprised by how significant the result was in the end?
I was pleasantly surprised. I think at the time when I started the requisition, I was very confident, as I've said before, that we would succeed. But the magnitude of 85% certainly was overwhelming and even above my optimistic levels. When I arrived, I was kind of hoping and expecting maybe high 60s, but 85% is absolutely magnificent.
You can hear the fans celebrating outside. How incredible has their support been today? You've just been speaking to them outside on the steps.
It's been phenomenal. I think without the fans in two aspects. I think firstly, I think it really was the fans and their contribution to, if I want to call it, the boycott period. And it's kind of sad in Rangers history that it came to that. But I think without that, I think we wouldn't have got to this point. Plus, in addition, the way the fans marshalled their resources during the period of the requisition and purchased shares in the marketplace, I mean, it was really, really an enormous effort by them, and I'm really, really extremely grateful to them for that.
You're all Rangers fans, so how much does it mean to you to now be involved with the club and be able to take it forward?
I think for Paul and I, the involvement is now a re-involvement, and I think that what we're hoping is that we can see the club as we go forward, in fact, go more back to the past. I mean, because really what we're looking is to restore the traditional values, and I think John, who has been a lifelong, extremely passionate fan, I think for John it must be a particular thrill, I would imagine, at this stage to come on the board and be part of this new and exciting future.
Yeah, what does it feel like for you today, John?
It feels fantastic. I think the last 4 years have been so difficult, but I think more importantly we want to re-engage with everybody and get the fans back on board, engage with the football authorities and put the club back on the map properly.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about engaging with Scottish football as a whole. Is it important for you to get the club, as you say, back on the map, but also to engage with maybe connections that have been lost over the past few years?
Well, I think if you look at history, Rangers have always led Scottish football. We've always been leaders, and I think, unfortunately, in the last, let's say 5 years or so, we just have seemed to have lost our way. And there's obviously things that have happened which certain people feel strongly about. I feel strongly about, but you've got to look forward now, and I think what we've got to try and do now is kind of re-engage to the extent that we want to now start to lead football. And you look at the state of Scottish football at the moment, it really needs Rangers to come back, and needs to come back, as Dave was saying, in a more recognisable format. And I think with the board of directors we're going to put together, it's going to be credible people who can not only play a part in terms of the business part of it, but also I think the kind of strategy to move the club forward, but also do it within Scottish football, and I say help Scottish football at the same time.
Dave, yesterday you said that it wasn't a great day in Rangers history, it was a great day in their future. How do you see that future for Rangers?
Well, I think the future really is again restoring the traditional value. I think we've got to get Rangers back to where it has been throughout most of its career, the dominant club in Scottish football, and certainly as a minimum I think Rangers fans expect at the beginning of each season that we should be competitive against Celtic. Now, that is going to take some time, and I think that the fans do understand that we're embarking on a long road here, that it's no overnight fix. It's going to take a lot of rebuilding in many aspects of the club, but at least we're starting in a path where for the first time in the last 5 years there'll be some certainty as to the direction. So even though it's a long road, we all know the road we're travelling, and if we can travel together with the fans, then we will get there and get Rangers back to its rightful spot in Scottish football.
I think one of the biggest things that's happened, I mean, I'm someone who's been if you like, fighting this cause for 4 years, with John and with Dave. I think one of the few good things to come out of the damage that's been done to the club in the last 4 years is the fact that the fans have united in a way that I would never have remembered in my lifetime, and I think that's great. I mean, and now we've got we've got this really positive energy, and it really is up to us as custodians of the club now to harness that and really use that positive energy to really drive the thing forward. Because I think all football clubs, you get fragmented groups and so on, but everyone is behind this single cause, which is amazing. And you see today, you can almost feel the kind of relief, and I actually feel quite humble. I said to John this morning, I was thinking of my father, my grandfather, and it just makes you feel really humble, which is great.
I think the guys that led the protest and put themselves right in the public eye, a lot of pressure on them from the press, and they stood tall. So very, very important for the club going forward that these people come back and they're welcome, and it's just fantastic.
The fans are going to come back, and are you hoping that helps the football on the pitch?
It must help them. I think for Rangers players to go out there and play in front of half-full stadiums with everything else that's been going on around them must be, if not despairing, certainly create a level of despondency. So hopefully it will be a big pick-up for the players in the field as well, just to get that energy that they're going to get from the fans for the rest of the season, and hopefully they can now kick off and have a really good run at trying to get promotion this season.
And regarding the management team, there is a lot of uncertainty around that at the moment. What plans do you have in place for the management structure?
I mean, the only plan in place now is to review it and look at what we've got to do, because it's clear. I mean, there are two managers on the payroll who've both declared that they don't want to be part of the club going forward. So it's obvious what we've got to do. We've got to go out there and try and find a management team that will certainly take the club through the short term and the long term and be part of that rebuilding programme. But it's going to have to be done very, very carefully, because it's a tougher requirement in the club going forward, because it takes a lot of building and coaching. It's not a question of bringing in a manager who's been dealing with top players. You really have a whole building programme that's got to go there. So it's going to take very, very careful selection to make sure we get the right individual.
I think we need some patience as well along the way here. You know, it's going to be pretty hard, but I think, you know, for all the fans, you need to be a wee bit patient, give it a little bit of time, and the last thing you want to do is make a rush appointment. So pretty important. I
think that's right, and I think the thing that I would say is that, you know, there's only been 13 men in the history of the club have held the position, so it's a hugely important position, and therefore that tells you that making snap decisions is not what we should do. And you know, we're here to build a long-term future for the club, and therefore it'll take some time to sort that out. But you know, I think the issues are there for all to see, and we just have to, you know, as Dave said, review the issues and actually move on from there.
Is it important to put an infrastructure in a scouting process that hasn't been in, that hasn't been able to get players
critical,
in?
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah, it's more than important, it's essential.
Yeah, it's essential.
And if I can just talk a little bit about the fact that you're not going to be putting yourself as chairman straight away. You've spoken a lot about transparency. Is that why you felt it was so important to go through the fit and proper process?
Yeah, you know, I felt in terms of my energy over the last period, it's been more about achieving the regime changes, as I've termed it, to get control of the board. And once I felt that that was in place, then looking forward, then I thought it probably makes sense, if I'm calling with my colleagues for transparency and accountability, maybe it should start with me. And I should maybe give this breathing space to the regulators to do their job. So it really seemed to be the right way forward from that perspective.
Is there a time scale in place when you imagine that you can become chairman?
My understanding is it's weeks. You know, I think my indication from the regulators is a process that takes 4 or 5 weeks. So it's certainly a very, very short time in terms of how long it's taken us to get there. So it's not something that's going to cause me any concerns.
How hands-on will the three of you be? I know you obviously are living away in South Africa, but the other two, will you be here quite often?
Yes, but yeah, absolutely. And we'll be dedicated and we'll give it everything we've got.
So one of the priorities is to rebuild the board, and there'll be other board appointments being made. And what we've got to do, I think what's been lacking in the last 4 years is any real sense of leadership, and we've got to provide leadership off the pitch. And if you provide leadership to any organisation and you provide honesty and transparency, that's all you can really offer. I mean, you know, as John said before, about a really hard task. There'll be ups and downs, but what we can offer is complete and utter transparency, honesty, and I think we've got the support of the fans to do that.
Just lastly, I'll just touch on this. There's been a lot said about a nominated advisor. Do you have one, and will you be putting them in place fairly soon?
We do have one, and now that the meeting is behind us, we're now in a position to go and approach them and formally put that in place. So that will happen within the next couple of days. Once they've gone through the process, the nominated advisor has to go through a process with the club as well and engage with the club. But at the end of that period, then we would expect the listing to resume.